Well, hello there and welcome back. This is episode 44 of my Minecraft 1.15 Let's Play. So I lost a little bet with AstaZora. We were doing some end busting in a live stream last week and we made a little bit of a friendly wager, and I gave him an over-under of 10% because I've been doing quite a bit of end busting and I was not able to cover the 10%. I beat him by 5 shulker shells, but I needed 7 to beat him. So I came so close. It was a very close run. But the consequence of that bet is that one of us needed to make a statue of the other in their base, and it needed to stay there for a week, and it also needs a sign here. And the sign needs to say that AstaZora is an amazing endbuster / genius. So I fulfilled my end of the bet, and then I've actually done it one better. I put some redstone inside of this statue. So we got one last finishing touch we need to do. Place a button down here, and let's make sure it works. Should fire off some fireworks from his eyeballs. Oh, that's a lot of fun. So I showed Asta a screenshot of this while I was working on it. Of the inside, he has no idea what the outside looks like, but I showed him the inside, and he knows that there's redstone inside, and he's convinced that I've turned it into a bomb. And I've done everything I could to play into that. So let's see. I think he's on the creative server right now. Let's see if we can get him to come over, and maybe he'll be afraid to hit that button. I think he'll be delightfully surprised, though. All right, so hey, Asta. How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
You remember how we did some end busting in the live stream last week?
I do. That was a lot of fun.
And I might have lost a little bit of a bet to you.
Oh, yeah. I remember that bet.
And I know you knew I was working on the statue, but I've got it all finished. I want you to
you won't let
out.
me see it.
Yeah. You want to come see it?
I don't know. Do I? I'm a little worried about what you have planned.
I know. Do you? It's not a bomb. It's totally not a bomb. There's no bombs.
All right, let's go see it.
All right, but there is a button I need you to push.
Okay. Whoa. All right.
Yeah, that is actually 32 blocks tall. It was only had to be 20.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, and then there's a sign up here. That was part of the agreement, that it says that AstaZora is an amazing endbuster / genius.
And there's a button.
And there is a button. And I'm gonna stand back. Go ahead and push that button.
I don't know if I want to push the button.
I think you should push the button. I see you got a totem there. You're that afraid? Or so you're just holding that just 'cause?
Yeah, I brought this with me because after the end busting, I don't really trust you.
It's not a bomb. I'm telling you, it's not a bomb. You believe me, don't you? Oh, that's so fantastic.
Where'd the fireworks even go?
Oh, right. They come out of your eyeballs.
Wait,
Go ahead and click it again. There's plenty of fireworks loaded into that thing. Oh, that's a lot of fun. You know, fireworks are actually really expensive.
Yeah, fireworks are really expensive.
And there's a lot of crafting. Because I had to craft 18 stacks of fireworks to load that thing up. And,
I mean, at least you still get 3 per craft.
There's one mode where you get where you use a diamond to get the trailing fireworks, and you only get 3 fireworks for 1 diamond.
Ooh.
I made 3 stacks of those that are in there. I spent a stack of diamonds on this. In my last episode, I talked about the shulker shell shulker and how it's been patched, but that a lot of the mechanics can be used to move shulkers through dimensions a lot easier. So here I am at my nether mob switch. I set this up some time ago. We're up above the nether roof about 500 blocks from spawn, and I've set up a second section right here. So this will support 1 player in the nether, and a second section will support 2 players in the nether at the same time. So I'm going to work my way in reverse. This is where the shulkers are going to end up, and we will work our way back to the end cities. Now, I'm not going to go into all the nitty-gritty details. Not everybody's going to be interested in all that. This is going to be more of a Let's Play style, and then in the very near future, I will come up with a tutorial on how you can do this. If you wanted to do this in your own world, or if you are just interested in the mechanics that are involved, because frankly, some of the mechanics are really darn cool. So I'll do that in the near future, but for now, what I've done is I've set up a little rail here. There's an activator rail right there. The shulker will pop off and just hover there for a second until he finds some place to teleport, which those are the only teleport locations. There are 72 blocks that they can teleport to. Everything else has buttons, and then the cart will fall off. It'll land there, and it will go into the chest right there. All right, so let's move over to the next section. So the rail that we saw there comes back another 500 blocks until we're almost at spawn. That's the spawn portal right there, but that's not the portal they're going to come through. They're actually going to come through in the lower nether down below. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to cut a hole in the bedrock. I've done that quite a few times, so that's actually pretty trivial at this point. And then I'm going to set up a rail spiral that goes down. Technically, it's going to come up to here, and it's actually going to continue quite a bit higher. So let's set that up. Oh, and before I get started, I am going to acknowledge the fact that I'm currently level 1033. I've been spending a lot of time at the gold farm AFKing over the last few nights in preparation of 1.16, but I don't really have any use for the experience. Still, it's pretty cool that I'm over level 1000 right now. Let's see if that lasts. I'm about to do a job that involves both TNT and digging straight down in the nether, so I don't think my odds are very good. So this is definitely the biggest build in the process, and it actually didn't even take me that long. So what it is it's a giant rail spiral that comes from below in the nether, goes through the nether roof, comes up, and then extends on further up, and then they're pushed over, the shulkers are pushed over into a giant queue here. So they don't take fall damage. They will stay in their carts, and they will just stack on top of each other until I'm ready to deal with them further. And I didn't need to make it this big, but I wanted to be able to deal with all 72 shulkers at once. So this is a giant queue that is capable of handling all 72. And then I've got a switch over here that will release them one at a time. And it's got a timed just so that there's just enough gap so that they don't bump into each other and so that they don't cause problems when we're pushing them into the mob switch down there. So the TNT and the lava didn't manage to take my levels, and you'll notice my levels are actually higher. That's because it's the following day and I've AFK'd a little bit more. You'll also notice that I'm now holding a Totem of Undying, and that's because as soon as I finished this project, AstaZora called me over because he had just finished a raid farm. So I went over there to check it out, and it was working pretty well, but we were both standing on the platform, and the evokers were able to see us, so we had to flee. And Asta ended up accidentally starting a raid at his own base, so I helped him fend it off, and I had a close call where an evoker knocked me off and made me use one of the Totem of Undying, but we managed to fend off the raid, and then he was able to figure out the best spot for a second person to stand and watch, and the raid farm is working really well. So the short story is he's given me a Totem of Undying, a shulker box full of Totems of Undying, so we can knock that off the list, and he's going to come by with a shulker box full of banners soon, and I'm going to see if I can beat him to getting a shulker box full of emerald blocks, but I'm going to have to do it through trading. It's going to be hard. He's getting a lot of emeralds really fast, but we'll see if we can do that. So I'm going to put a link in the description. Check out AstaZora's video if you want to know more about that raid farm. So distractions aside, this is where the rail spiral starts, and it extends up through the nether roof like we saw. And then I built up a little bit of rail coming back here, and then I've set up a portal over here. So this is where the shulkers will come from the overworld. They'll come through this portal, through this rail, and then extend up there. And then I've set up a chunk loader right here. This is one of Nembom's chunk loaders. There's the same thing on the overworld side at the 8 times the coordinates, which is still within spawn chunk, and it's facing the opposite direction. So it basically just spits items back and forth to keep the chunks loaded. And this will keep these 3 chunks loaded. So it'll keep the chunk that we're in right now, where the chunk loader is. It will keep the chunk loaded over here where the rail spiral is, so that's what we want. And then it'll keep the chunk over there where the portal is, right here. So it'll keep these 3 chunks loaded. So basically, once they come through, everything will be loaded so that they can go all the way up the rail spiral without me having to worry about them unloading. Because if they did unload, they'd all just stop at the same point in the rail. And then when I join the nether, they'd just collide into each other and it'd be a big old mess. So I need to keep this loaded so that that doesn't happen. So there's not much to the overworld side at all. We already cleared out this area a couple episodes ago, and you can see sky from one of the blocks right there. That is the world spawn point. That is where they will spawn in, and they will spawn at the highest block available, which we've made sure is that rail right there, and that is an activator rail. So they will actually, because of timing, they will spawn in at the same time as the minecart. They will join with the minecart, but then they will immediately be ejected and straight into the portal. And then basically the same thing happens on the nether side, where they will spawn at the same time as the minecart, and they will immediately join with the minecart. So even though we're ejecting them from the minecart, they are staying with that minecart through the whole trip. Makes everything a lot easier. And then we've just got a bunch of buttons around so that they don't decide that they want to teleport at any point, because when we eject them, they will try to teleport, and when they can't, they will go through the nether portal. But otherwise, they might pick any of these spots, or that's why we've cleared out this area, and those are slabs. Everything else is buttoned. So over here on the end side, we've got this portal that I broke a couple episodes ago, and that allows me to set up a rail that goes under and then through it. And for some reason, when shulkers reach this point right here, there's actually 2 activator rails right there. They do not try to teleport. So I don't need to worry about teleport proofing any of these blocks over here, because they'd actually teleport to glass or bedrock. They pick any of these ones, but they don't try. And then so they get sent through the portal, and then the minecart does at the same time. And then we follow the rail back, and then we've got ourselves another giant queue here. And on the nether side, I used a spiral because I wanted to break through the bedrock roof, and I didn't want to have to break too many blocks there. So on this side, I just have a giant ramp that just ramps them right up and then sends them into the queue. The queue holds just as much as the nether side does, so that means I can queue them all up here and then send them all up to the nether at the same time. So we're about 4,000 blocks away from the main end island, and this is one of the closest end cities that still has shulkers in it. This is where I stopped when I finished working on my last mob switch, so there's already a rail that goes all the way back to the main end island. So this is what I used to use for a queue, because I didn't realize that I could just drop them as far as I want. So I've got like this very manual queue where I'd load one shulker in, then I'd have to flip this switch, and then I'd load the next shulker in, and this queue only allowed me to take 6 back to the main end island at a time. And it was a very manual process, but I can do a lot better than that. Now that I've done a ton of testing, I've realized I can take up to 16 of them at a time. So let's set up that queue. So this is actually a much simpler queue than my last version. So it's actually just a big stack of shulkers that get loaded up into a pile here. We got a little bit of extra redstone to send them along their way. Much faster timer than the other 2. We'll see that working in a little bit. And then I don't even have a full glass tower covering these, because when I've got these loaded up, I need to be under constant invisibility potions pretty much no matter what. So there's not a lot of reason to add the extra glass, because this is all kind of a temporary structure anyways. So I don't think there's still 16 shulkers left in this end city, but it's not like it was hard to build this up to 16 blocks. But let's see how many we can find. We'll load up this queue, and then we'll send them on their way. Well, there goes them levels. Yeah, I took off my feather falling boots so I could take an invisibility potion. I was trying to land on that rail up there, and I hit it too hard, and so I used my totem, and then I fell again and took lethal damage again. Oh well. Easy come, easy go, I guess. Alright, this time I brought some scaffolding so that I can get up and down there fairly easily. You forget that without feather falling, it can be a lot harder to land on something like that. To get shulkers into a minecart, you really don't have to do anything special. You just need to run a minecart right next to them, and they'll just hop right in, and then I should be able to drop them off here. And yeah, he's not going to start off on his own, but if I push a minecart over from the other side, I should be able to get him to move along. All right, he shouldn't still be shooting at me. And if we send a minecart here, he should get into the queue on his own. And I probably don't... Yep, the minecart actually stops, so I can grab it. And we should be good here. See how many more of these guys we can wrangle up. I'm amazed at how many shulkers were left in this end city. It looks like we got about 14, not quite 16, but still pretty darn good. So the next thing I need to do is I need to put another minecart up there. Also, by the way, I think I will put glass on the sides the next time around. It's not that expensive, and I think it would be worth it. There are times when you aren't always invisible. I'm invisible right now, so it's perfectly safe. So this last cart, that one's for me to ride. And so what I'm doing, so I've got the switch here. That's how I let them go. And like I said, this one's a lot faster than the other one. That's one because I want them to stay near me. I don't want them to go ahead into unloaded chunks. So using this timing, I tested it out, and you should be able to keep about 16 shulkers in a row without them bumping into each other or without them going off into unloaded chunks. So that's what we want. So I'm gonna do this, and then I need to try and hop into that last cart without actually getting so close that these guys start shooting at me. If they start shooting at me, they're gonna start hitting each other. I missed it. So I'm gonna have to fly on over and try again. And if they start shooting each other, they're gonna die and very bad things happen. So you don't want that. So we've got to be very, very careful. And try and make sure that I don't get too close to them. And then get onto that cart, and I gotta just follow behind them. And I need to make sure that if my visibility starts to wear out, I take this potion right away. Again, I do not want them to see me. So we made it back from the main island safely, and I have gone into the nether and turned on the chunk loader. So I'm just gonna send 2 of these guys initially. Let's go ahead and drink an invisibility potion so they don't see me. And I'm just gonna flick this switch and let 2 of them through, and that's it. That should do it. Let's see if they get through safely. I managed to get across safely, so let's just send the rest of them. Send them all. Look at this. This is so fascinating to watch. I love this spiral. Like, they're so perfectly timed. Looks like everything's working really, really well. Making their way up to the top. And then they'll just drop right off. Alright, so we managed to get them all safely on top of the nether, and so the last step is just to send them over to the mob switch itself. Now, if this were a larger batch, I'd probably have to either do a partial batch or have somebody over on the other side loading that area, because there's no chunk loading between here and there. So we got to make sure that they don't go into unloaded chunks, otherwise the carts just stop and it causes problems. But for this small of a batch, we should be fine. I should be able to just send them all, and then I'll just fly on behind them, and that should keep everything loaded the whole way along. Oh, I do not have an invisibility potion on me, or I haven't taken one. Yeah, that's not good. Let's make sure we don't do that again. Hopefully they don't shoot each other too much. And then as long as we stay far enough away, Shouldn't be too much of a problem. All right, and here we go. Here's another thing that's really fun to watch. Watching them pick their stations. There we go. This is working really, really well. No losses so far, knock on wood. All right, it looks like we had 13, not 14, still a pretty good start. So me and Asta are going to work together to get the rest of these loaded up over the next couple episodes. I just kind of wanted to demonstrate the whole process working, and then we'll work on doing some more. And then at some point, and probably in the near future, we can do the same thing. It should actually be quite a bit easier to do one in the overworld. You think I'd have learned by now. I keep saying that in the next episode, I'm going to do a big project, and I'm going to start on another one, and then I always end up running out of time. So we got a big group project with me and Asta, and I guess that's going to have to wait until the next episode. So until then, I want to thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you have a good one, and you take it easy. Bye.